democracy as we meet here as county council and to serve those people in Wells County. We ask that you watch over our first responders, sheriff, police, firefighters, our military, all those people that work here hard every single day so that we can enjoy these freedoms that we have. We ask you to watch over us tonight as we have our meeting. We have to be civil and that we do the best that we can for the people that we represent. We say these things in Jesus' name, amen. Amen. The good news is I think we've got the safest building in Wells County. So thank you everybody for attending tonight. We'll go ahead and start by passing the minutes from our March 4th meeting. I know Lisa sent them out. I didn't see any corrections. Nobody has any. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from March 4th?
So moved.
Thank you, Vicki. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, on our additionals, I believe Mr. Hex Petros here, if you want to come on up.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening. So the first line item is actually pretty straightforward. That's for the salary increase that we'd already approved previously. The other additional you're asking for is for $10,000 for machinery and equipment.
That is correct. With that additional, we're looking at $10,000 to cover three 800 megahertz radios. Two of those are handhelds, and one is a multi-band for the SUV that I currently drive. The approximate amount on those three radios are $7,586.95. However, I'm asking for just a little bit more, which is where the $10,000 comes in, and that's going to cover the installation, extra batteries, extra antennas, and so forth, part of that equipment. So that was where that $10,000 come from. That, like I said, just a little bit over to cover the extra expenses.
And just to help John out, yesterday at our EMA meeting, we went ahead and made a motion to approve that request for the $10,000. So from the advisory board standpoint.
Okay.
Correct.
And I know when we spoke that you mentioned that these are not the Motorola normal radios.
Correct.
They have no problem interacting with the other long
No, sir.
radios and
Nope, they're
fire and.
They're IPSC approved through the state. They're a pretty good top of the line radio, from what I'm being told. So
How long do you expect those to last?
I'm hoping for a good long time. I can't honestly answer that for you. I know they're a rugged radio. I brought one with me in case anybody wanted to see it. They're a rugged radio. They're one of the top of the line for durability as of right now, and they are the the second wave of P25 compatible. So once we implement these radios, we shouldn't have to worry about any more banding or anything else until the state upgrades themselves. So.
These radios will according to the new requirements coming out from the.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Any other questions for John? If not, do I have a motion to approve both the additionals, one for the director salary and the other for machine and equipment?
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Brandon. All in favor?
Aye.
So should I?
Thank you, John.
The second thing I want to bring up is the BRIC grant. So I was notified a little over a month ago from the Department of Homeland Security that Wells County had been picked for a BRIC grant, which was a 25% matching grant. Where we would match $8,128.60, and they would give us $24,304. Pardon me. Those grants is very important for our counties that they keep their multi-hazard mitigation plan up to date and avoid letting it expire. And with that grant, it would give us the amount of money to have a company come in and do all that grant or all of that writing of that plan and verification of the hazards and so forth. So that's coming down the line. That's been approved through the commissioners so far. So I'm bringing it to you folks to know that it's coming.
Numbers again, please.
A matching grant of 25% was $8,128.60 on our behalf, and $24,304 on the government's part. And as of this week, the ball is rolling for us to receive that. I got an email saying that things are in line and it's moving pretty slowly, but it's moving.
Is there a timeframe on that grant if it gets approved? Is there-
Not that I am aware of. Pardon me. Not that I'm aware of.
So if it did come together, it would be some $8,000 some dollars, or would it be additional, I assume?
Mhm.
I don't think it's in that budget.
Yep, folks, they're gonna come up with
Oh.
additional for it. And when did you say that will be happening?
Here in the near future. That was
Okay.
the BRIC 23 grant, so, and as of this week, I was notified that we're all in line, everything's moving along, but it's a slow process. So hopefully within the next couple of months.
I know you're new to the position, and thanks for all you're doing with it, but is this a recurring grant, or do you know?
I cannot answer that. I do not know. Yeah, it's all new. So, I actually thought that my predecessor put in for this grant and checked with Lisa and some others, and we were afraid that he did without permission, and that's not the case. Wells County was picked, so to say, from the government as it was our turn to receive this grant. So that's how we're chosen to get that. Any other questions?
Anything else for John?
So I left a stack of paper taped together for all of you. Just, it was information that I brought up yesterday at the EMA Advisory Board. Just so you folks know what's been going on in the Office of Emergency Management since I took over the last of January. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I won't take up any more of your time this evening.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right, the next is, healthcare grants. All right, you want to come on up? Don't mind walking us through your line items.
Yeah, so the first thing is for the grant administrator, which would be our current food inspector, Erin. So that'd be an additional for her salary. Second, we have 18,000 budgeted for supplies, and I put that in my, letter to you guys. So it's the pod supplies, so a generator, tents, traffic cones, safety equipment, signage. Then we have 400 for travel, and then 1,600 for a storage unit for those pod supplies.
Do you know on the 18,000 where you have traffic cones, safety equipment, signage, generator, do you work with the EMA on some of that too, so the county's not buying multiple of these things that when you're down the hall, you can share them or
Right.
use them? Like, are you guys communicating with each other?
Yeah,
about-
so some of it can be shared
Okay.
between both. So this would be specific for the point of distribution, so if there was an emergency, we set that up. But certainly if we have it sitting around, then if they need it to borrow it, that's not a problem.
Okay.
Where's the storage unit gonna be?
Um,
Asking about?
It's the one that is north of town. I can't think of the name of it.
Out by the apartments?
Yes, yeah,
Okay, the older one or the newer one?
the newer one, the temperature controlled one.
And do these need to be temperature controlled?
Yes.
And then so that's 1,600, is that a yearly
Mhm.
cost?
Do you know the 5,000 for additional for grant administrator?
Yes.
Is that expanding, like the amount of hours that person's working, is it?
Yes, this will be in addition to her current role. So.
So it is more hours?
It is more hours, extra meetings, extra classes, extra training.
How many-
Normally the salaries and pay, we do that during,
Mhm.
or during our normal salary, even though grant money is there, we want to be careful not just giving.
Right.
Don't know if it's gonna come back or not. And-
So
but it is
this
an
actually-
Expanding role where it's more beyond the scope of what she's doing now.
Yeah.
If she's doing 8 hours now, it's gonna go to 9 or 10, that's okay.
Mhm.
But if it's just, say, within 8 hours, you take other stuff away.
Right.
She's picking this up, it's not really, do you know what I'm getting
Mhm.
at? Okay.
So this grant actually will continue until the end of 2029. So we have the option to opt in again
So it's an ongoing grant.
next year for an additional 25,000. So each year for an additional 25,000.
Didn't we have, when Harlan, didn't we have a line item for grant writing?
When they increased Sahara's wages, they took that and rolled it into that wage.
Oh, okay. I just remember there was a separation at one time there, and I didn't know without having a budget book. Where's that line item?
So it's not being separated now, it's just included in
For
whose
normal grant
role?
writing.
Sahara's? Okay, for normal grant writing.
So this will be for additional grant writing, above and beyond that, is that?
Yeah, so she would be our emergency coordinator. So it's not specific like grant writing, but just being the coordinator for,
So this is,
When and if-
this is required for this grant?
It
Oh,
is,
Okay, so
yes.
it's a requirement.
yes.
Hoops to get through to get all.
Yes.
What are the hours going to, from what is current to what shall be?
So the grant requires an additional, I believe it's an extra like 2 hours, 2 to 5 hours a week. But then there's going to be additional training courses that'll be after normal like health department hours.
So right now, the current job is scheduled for how many hours?
37 and a half.
37 and a half, and
Mhm.
she'll be moving up to 40, a
40,
full 40.
40 or more, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Sahara? All right,
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
So is this supposed to be paid out by a certain date?
So it's a reimbursable grant, so we have until the end of June to use it.
Okay, so with this $5,000, will she be able to use that many hours for the $5,000?
Oh,
or
yeah,
what's-
absolutely.
There'll be 5 pay periods, so she'll make an additional $1,000 for 5 pay.
I think we're getting hours to.
That would be included through the end of June.
We can also backdate it as well. So this grant actually opened July of last year. We were kind of late getting it to the process. So we can backdate that for just reimbursements from it. So including hours that she already has worked.
She's already been doing some of this
Yes,
work already.
yes,
Just the grant didn't come before us to appropriate money till now.
yes, that's correct.
Any other questions for Sahara? If not, do I have a motion to approve the grant administrator for 5,000, supplies for 18,000, travel, lodging, conference for 400, and storage for 1,600?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Todd. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Sahara.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna have to redo the salary.
So I can do it for, do it some of those funds too. Okay. Well, it'd be less than that, would it, if we pass it in May? It's one before page, right? It would be May to June. Yeah. Just do back in here. Put it there, do May. Okay, we'll go ahead and I'll make a motion to go ahead and, take the $5,000 split between the remaining pay periods, once the salary ordinance is updated. Second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Vicki. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? $12,161 for the Bridge 65.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Todd. Do I have a second?
Second. Brian?
Thank you, Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Sheriff Holliday, you're up next.
Good evening.
Oh.
I gave everybody the monthly generated income report. In front of you, it's also got the monthly activity report in there, as well as the continued numbers I'm supplying for courthouse security for the month of March. I don't see anything out of the ordinary out of there, and come back to that if anybody's got any other questions. I'd like to save most of my time for what is on the agenda for tonight. Just a briefing, I have kept Seth involved. We've had some more issues with cast iron pipes out at the jail. This time it was in the kitchen. We've dug into some stuff out there, and it's kind of opening a can of worms. So we kind of halted what we were doing. I got Commissioner Stringer involved. We had a company, Alice O'Brien, come out. The priority is going to be to get our kitchen fixed. We don't know what that's going to entail yet at this point, but they're also looking at a larger scale project as far as what do we do with the existing rusty part of the sewer system within the jail. So, I called Seth a couple weeks ago just to give him a heads up. Jeff's kind of spearheading getting things rolling to just kind of see the scope of the project, what we're looking at there and what we can do. Unfortunately, that was not part of anything to do with the renovation. But it seems like this cast iron stuff is coming back. Most of it's all buried under 12 inches of concrete. It's not anything we could normally see or be super visible about, at least at that time. But again, I'll keep you apprised. I'll definitely keep Seth apprised. Whether it's a meeting or not a meeting, I'll let him know. He can let the rest of you know as we learn what we're dealing with. So, I was asked not to take too long. I know your commissioner meeting went almost 3 hours last night, right, Jeff? So, and then he was silly enough to come back and sit through this meeting, and Lisa, yeah. So I will keep this brief, but I want to highlight the most important parts of what I want to talk about. Over the last couple of weeks, I've met with all the council members individually and kind of went into depth on this. So I will not give you the same speech that I did for both of you, but maybe 10 minutes here or so I can highlight the importance. A couple months ago, I kind of came to council and just expressed kind of a dire situation we had been in. We for years have been dealing with jail hiring issues, getting people to work in the jail. It could be a ton of factors. One, the type of job. Two, pay. Three, long shifts. We're a 24/7 operation. So to work odd shifts, to do the jobs we do, to work with inmates, those type of things, that was a big struggle. We haven't been able to fill positions or our total positions in the jail for many years. And so that's a problem. And then our deputies. A couple of years ago, as the administrator, it's my job to keep the pulse on what we do. There's 70%, I looked it up, there's 70% of police agencies that are struggling with hiring law enforcement officers and confinement officers. So we're not the only people struggling with this. And so the pool of people out there, for one, that want to do this job, and two, to do the type of work we're doing is very slim. So we have to be tactful. We have to be very mindful about how we go about our hiring processes, what we do internally. And then most importantly, is retaining our own people that we have. I've been asked questions in the past about have we lost people to other agencies, those type of things. In the past, we hadn't. The last couple of years, we have. We've lost people in various ways. We had people that moved. We had somebody that quit, now is eventually working part-time for ASEAN. We had one that left a couple months ago to work for the state police. We had 2 people on medical leave. We had just a handful of issues. And at that time, 2 months ago, when I came before you, I just said, I'd never come before council for a mid-year adjustment or to try to do something to combat this. But I felt as the administrator that for us to wait till 2026 to do nothing, when it comes to asking for the council's help and helping rectify retainment and recruitment, I think we'll be in a more serious issue than we would be, if we wait and do nothing. So I felt it important to address that with each council member. We got our staff together. You see a large crowd back here. 80% of them are my employees. That's probably about half of them. They're not here to bully anybody. They're here to support because they believe in what they do. They believe in the job they do. Why they do it, I don't know. They're probably as crazy as I am for taking this job and doing what they do. But there's a lot of dedicated people that sit behind me. And nothing's worse than losing one of these people back here. They're seasoned, they're trained. They put their hearts into what they do. They work odd shifts. They get spit at, they get threats against them, they get in fights. I have deputies that go out on the streets every day and see, hardened criminals, child molesters, murderers, domestic violence, and then they get to go home and try to shut that off and have a family life. And so it isn't your normal everyday job. So to get somebody to want to do that job is a feat in itself. But once you get people like this that come through and do this job and come to work every day with minor complaints, that's a jackpot. And so I hate it when people leave. And so we can do certain things, I can do certain things, and I'm not coming before you as the sheriff to say, I want you to fix my problem for me, because that's not how I operate. But unfortunately, I don't operate the purse strings. That's what the council's job is as a fiscal body, and I'm asking for some help in that area to be able to help us with the retention and the recruitment stuff. As the sheriff, we constantly are trying to build a culture, and I have a job as an administrator to do all the things on a daily basis and to create that work environment and a culture that make people want to work there. That's on me and our staff and our administrators and those type of things. But unfortunately, I know you don't have an endless pot, but I have a pot of money that is dictated by the people that are sitting in front of me. So with that being said, my focus on what I had presented to all the council members was to really focus on this retention and recruitment. And I think that higher wages, that's always been something that I've addressed in the past. We fought for it 6 years ago. We got a matrix put in place. We've always are fighting every year in our budget to get our pay matrix up. I've had comments about, this is kind of a leapfrogging game. If you give us more money, then, Austin's going to get more money and Bluffton's going to get more money. And I can't control that, but we have to, whether it's us or the private sector job, we have to remain competitive in the market. We're not only competing with law enforcement or confinement jobs locally or adjoining counties, we're competing with the private sector now. I mean, you guys see what's happening in the economy, and I mean, Walmart's paying more, McDonald's is paying more. So we're competing, and not only that, when you can make more money having weekends off, working day shift, and those type of things, again, crazy people for doing it, have a passion for doing it, they want to do it, right? But some people will go, I'm not going to do that kind of work and for that type of money and do those type of things. So we have to keep our pulse on the wages. So I don't think just throwing money at wages is going to solve the problem. But we are, and I've covered with each of you, we are the lowest paid agency in the county. And so that's, in my opinion, a problem. I've given my opinions on the differences between maybe agencies or sheriff's department versus city police departments. We all have the same job, and in essence, but the sheriff's department does have additional jobs that we we do as officers of the court. We run the jail and dealing with inmates 24/7 and those type of things. So wages is important. Very few people switch jobs for lower pay. I mean, I don't know in your career, I think, you know, we can say wage doesn't matter, but it does. And in essence, we always look at wages and benefits and what's available to us when it comes to either switching jobs or even coming into this community and saying you want to be a law enforcement. They're going to rate the different agencies around here. If somebody wants to stay local and those type of things, they're going to look at wages. Another thing on that retainment part is, just to go through quickly, there is a sheet there with proposed changes. Wages obviously is one. I'd like to see the wages increased. I presented to all you, I'd like to see the base salary for a deputy to be $65,000, and I'd like to see the base salary of a jailer to be $50,000, a little over $50,000. There is comparisons there between local communities. As far as where do we stand within those, I know people like to see those. Another thing for retainment, I'd like to see shift differential come back. Again, I brought up we are a 24/7 operation. Multiple people back here work odd shifts with odd days off. It may be third shift with Tuesdays and Wednesdays off. We used to pay shift differential. That went away with the matrix years ago. And quite honestly, I think that needs to come back. I think that's valuing their ability to work third shift, to alter their schedule and those type of things. And on top of it, this type of work. I'd like to see that back. That's the second thing on the proposal sheet. I'd like to see a specialty pay on the deputy side for instructor certifications and special assignments. Those could be anything like a canine officer or an instructor. And I went into detail. I'm not going to bore you with those details, but to have a stipend based on their base salary for going above and beyond their normal duties to take on things that are necessary to keep our job functioning, to keep our certifications functioning, and the hours that are involved in those. I'd also like to see that the chief deputy and jail commanders' pay be based off of the max salary of the elected sheriff. So a max salary. I think I talked to some of you about taking it out of the pay matrix and making it a percentage of of my salary. I think it should remain in. The more I've talked to each of you, there was questions about, you know, a 5-year employee versus, you know, a 20-year employee and those type of things. So prior to Presental, I'd like to keep that in and make that 75, the max pay of those positions, 75% of the sheriff's salary. And keep in mind, both those employees that I have are both 27-year employees, and they're both exempt employees. They don't get overtime. So those two are the department heads to the department that oversee a majority of what goes on, and they do not get overtime. Recruitment, just briefly, I talked about, I think, is recruitment. We need to increase the experience level. Right now, we offer 5 years in our pay matrix to people with experience either in the jail, or if we get an officer that you know, moved here, is a certified officer and wants to get hired on our department, we offer up to 5 as a max. I'd like to see that move to 10 years. And I would also like for us to honor vacation as part of that package. If you come in as a 20-year city officer from somewhere and you have 10, we would honor up to 10, and we would also offer whatever our county level was in that vacation level. So I think that will help tremendously with recruitment. And those are all the items on there. Again, I think the importance is, I encourage you to consider what I've presented. Competitive pay, I true-heartedly believe, will attract high-quality candidates. It'll offer career growth opportunities and support, and help retain the experienced officers that we already have, reduce turnover. The stability and expertise would lead to a more effective, experienced, and committed force, enhancing overall public safety and trust in this agency. Again, I'm doing my part. I don't want you, nor am I expecting you guys to fix our problem, but I think we don't have a choice And I don't make these people come to work every day. They choose to come to work. And they can leave at any minute. And the way things are financially and those type of things in the world, I think that it's important to take care of these people. I do my best, and I've always fought for them when it comes to that with the matrix through pay every year. The jail itself is doing less. I used to get asked, am I fully staffed in the jail when we're asking for 2 extra jailers come budget time? Keep in mind, we're not. And so even when we're not, we're already doing more with less. And, they already have a stressful job, let alone to throw more pressure on it. I've spent the last, not me, the deputies, a lot of them back here have spent a good portion of the last 6 to 8 months working overtime, working tons of hours for all those shortages. The same with the jail. We don't need to overwork these people, because I guarantee you what's going to happen is they're going to leave, and they're going to go find a job that pays probably the same, or even be willing to take a little bit less to get rid of the stress. So I encourage, I've always felt support from this. I feel like we need to do something sooner than later. Again, I wouldn't come mid-year, and never have, if I didn't feel like it was important. And I don't want to be telling even a worse story come 2026, or trying to fight for that in the budget. Again, I won't make this a very long meeting. Again, I appreciate you taking the time. Truly, every one of you have met with me over the last 2 weeks and allowed me to get in depth with it. So some of this is repeat for you. A lot of this is, for the people that don't understand maybe necessarily what goes on. I felt like this council has always been supportive in what we do, and doesn't put us in a box with a bunch of other people that maybe we don't necessarily do. We're not any better. We're not any more special. We just have a different type of job that definitely needs to be taken care of. And you don't get good people like this all the time. We weed through a lot of people on a daily basis and a weekly basis, and we're constantly training people and those type of things. So please take my recommendations or suggestions under recommendation. I'll answer any questions if you have any.
I do have a quick question.
Yep.
I don't think I asked you before. The total amount that you have here that you're wanting, that the cost would be, does that include pensions, that type of thing, or is this just plain salary? Like your implementation costs for the year?
Yeah, the implementation costs, so since we have 2 budgets of jail and sheriff, those are what it would affect in a year's base time, but it does not include, you're saying if the county's portion of the pension?
Yes.
No. Now, they would obviously pay more into their pension as well, because.
Right, they would, but it doesn't include the cost for the county.
Yeah, any year you guys give us a cost of living increase, it increases our wages, it can increase the pension, yep. Or the unfunded liability that's in the pension as well, so.
The dollar amount you're talking here, there could be above and beyond costs for the county.
Yes.
All the employment taxes.
I don't know how that works as far as from your end.
Strictly salary.
Yeah, this is strictly budget, this is,
I just
yeah,
wanted to make
what I'm
sure.
showing there is what it would affect our budget. That number for jail and sheriff is that is an entire year. Obviously, I'm here in May or April asking for this, but it wouldn't cost that if we implemented something this year. Below that, kind of gave you an example, if this was implemented with 6 or 7 months left in the year, that would be the cost on, and that's a total cost for the budget, if we needed to adjust those type of things. So obviously, I know it would take a change to our salary ordinance to do something like that mid-year. So I didn't expect, and talking to you all, that I know how it works. It's not anything that you're gonna vote on tonight. Obviously, you'll digest this, and then we'll readdress this hopefully at the next meeting, and go from there.
Sure. Does this include the shift differentials and things like that?
Yes.
All,
Yeah.
everything that you're asking is in
Yeah, I basically,
in that number?
yeah,
283 is all in.
283 is all in.
Okay.
Yep.
For anything. that-
Salaries, everything, obviously the honoring 10 years in the matrix, you know, I can't calculate that right now, because I don't have anybody that falls in. I basically took current employees, put them in the new matrix with the specialty pays and the shift differential. The shift differential, just so you're aware, I did calculate that out, in case you guys asked me. 37, about 37,000 of that would be shift differential for both jail and sheriff. And then specialty pay is about 18, just under 19,000 in specialty pay for both sheriff and jail. So combined shift differential and specialty pay add about 56,000 of that
And our-
278,
You've got,
or 280.
on a shift differential, it says 3 and 4%.
That would be,
Is 3 for second?
3 is for second shift, 4% is for thirds, and that's both shifts, and it's based off their base salary. So it'd be a 3% stipend, or however you want to say it, based off the base salary.
And then on the special assignments, which did you go, 2 or 3%, or which?
From anywhere from 2 to 3%.
But your figures are on which of, 2 or 3?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
The figures, it's 2 to 3%, so I'm asking, which figure did you use for the numbers that you're giving us?
I use actual right now, so whatever qualified for somebody at a 2% on that specialty pay, if they were a basic instructor, it was 2%.
Okay.
If they had the higher classification, it was 3%.
Okay, all
And so I went in and actually
It
looked
uses
at,
both, it's
yep,
not
I looked at my current employees and said, who all has certifications, and plugged those numbers in, those are all added into that total.
Gotcha.
So just for an example, for the jail, or for the deputies, shift differential for seconds would be $1,950, and third shift would be $2,600. That's based off that would be based off that 65,000, so,
Annual per person.
annual per person, correct. And again, that's not all, I mean, that's obviously just people working seconds and thirds. Day shift people would not get that, so.
Now, are you pretty much covered here if you were able to come up with new employees that were added on to you're
Yeah,
behind now, right?
Yeah, I'm behind, but
So
like,
if you caught up, will this still be enough? Let's say in 3 months, you're full,
I calculated in, even though like right now we're short one deputy, I put in 65,000 for that empty spot. So that's in that, I accounted for that adjustment to be based on that, so. One fact I can say is, we'll probably give back a good portion of what I'm asking at the end of the year, just due to being short on staffs, It's hard to calculate that. I was asked also, how much did we spend in overtime? I know we spent a lot in overtime. It's hard to calculate that out because we do overtime for a lot of reasons, training, coverage. Part of the year, we were doing coverage at one time for Aussie, and it's really hard to extrapolate that. But I know between, we've paid some of these people. I know some of them just in conversations had exceeded that number just in overtime on their W-2 because they worked so much overtime. That's not a good thing. They get burned out, right? So, but I also, we're gonna give money back at the end of this year in unused salaries because we haven't been fully staffed. I mean, I never, if you can remember, I outside of covering for Ossian because I wanted the money back, I've in the 6 years I've been sheriff, I can't think of one time I've ever asked you for overtime because we typically have extra salaries because of, you guys budget for me to be fully staffed. If I'm not, I have those extra salaries. So I'm not saying it's going to cover all that, but there's going to be a good portion. And if you look at it, just 2 deputies alone to employ a deputy for our county is about with full benefits, car, all the gear, everything that goes along with it, it's about $110,000. I know that because we build schools for our SROs, for a portion of our SROs. So it's usually around $110,000 to $115,000 to employ one deputy. Obviously, a little less than that jailer doesn't have all those type of things, but, so, in the long run, it may seem big, but, I think to not do anything, to be even down more and get money back at the end of the year we're not accomplishing anything other than hurting people, and people will get fed up, and so,
I know it may not be ideal, and by the way, respect and appreciate all that you're doing for your folks and all that they do out there. This is not what I'm asking. What I'm getting at is we did some now and some at budget time, only because we don't know what this Senate bill won. If anyone's been familiar with what's going on, the state could lose. I think the original version, I was told we could lose up to 4 million of revenue, probably not going to be the one that gets passed, but we don't know, so to commit, fully, but the good news is by the time our next meeting, we'll hopefully know what the legislature did on Senate Bill 1, and what our revenues will have some guidance, maybe what
Sure.
they'll look like. But there's a big unknown right now there for us. But I know, at least I'll speak for myself, I want to be able to do something.
yeah. Yeah, I think doing nothing is,
Right.
is detrimental to what we're trying to achieve. If you're, yeah.
We can't do all we want to.
I mean, I'm obviously here asking, it'd be just like budget hearings. I'm gonna ask for everything. I'd be willing to, you guys are the numbers people when it comes to what you can and can't do. It's easy for me to go, we do have just under $1 million in lit money that, checking with Lisa, that's something that can be, there are options. I'm sure you guys all know that. I'm not here to tell you guys how to do your job. There are funds in lit that could help support a good portion, if not all of this, in the short term. I know lit would be affected as well eventually, and those are always, we can't always predict what those numbers are, but we always have a portion of lit that is dedicated to public safety. And quite honestly, I think that should go towards things like this. I think there's only 6 things on here. I mean, obviously, one of them's the biggest, and that's wages, right? And so, in talking to you guys, I think that, if it's, you guys have to make that decision, but I think that some of those, like the 10 years in the matrix along with vacation, doesn't cost the council any money. That's on me administratively, because I have to give somebody days off that they normally wouldn't have, right? It does. Yeah, so those are type of things. There's some that are, the corporal rankings for in the jail you're only talking a couple $1,000s. So, I think that some of the other things, I don't think it's the end of the world, but, I think we should do our best to get as much as this accomplished, beforehand. So,
Sheriff, the implementation cost, and I might be misunderstanding this, do those reflects a fully staffed jail and a fully staffed sheriff's department? Or does that implementation cost reflect your current staff levels?
It does include being fully staffed, but what I have to do when I come up with that number is wherever I'm short, I have to put the base salaries in there. So if I'm short 2 jailers, for example, and I'm asking for $50,000, so I'm short 2 jailers, but the implementation cost is really, if you give them a pay increase, it's going from 44 to 50. So I included that empty slot with a base salary with the new salary. So that total of going from 44 to 50 was counted for those 2 empty spots. So that would have been about $6,000 per employee. So that 12,000 is in that 280.
So let me perhaps ask this another way, just to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. If we were to fund this with your current staff levels for 12 months, it would not cost $283,000.
Correct, it would be less because.
It'd be less because you're not fully staffed. Okay.
Yeah, and quite honestly, you'd be in a lot better shape because there's $50,000 for each jailer and $65,000 for each deputy that you're not paying either.
And so, in the event that this sort of retention and recruitment program would be successful, and you were to become fully staffed by hiring more people, at that point, in 12 months, we would spend $283,000.
Yes, that adds that to those budgets, yep.
I've asked the same question 3 different ways, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, and hopefully I've answered it so that you understood it. So, yeah, with it being mid-year, we have a 2025 budget, and when I did all these new numbers, I said, what were we budgeted, and if I implement this, how much does it add to my 2025 budget?
Right.
And I kind of treated it like, here's a snapshot of a whole year. If I was to come to you in January after the budget was approved and said, now I want to make it this, it would add that much to the budget for the entire year. And then you can break that down by 12 or divide it by 12 and then add it to whatever the number of months are left in the year. So,
Yeah, and you're showing that here.
yep.
Any other questions for the sheriff?
It's not a question, but we do appreciate all that you guys do. We do want you to know that, and we try our best to do whatever we can. It's just that we have to consider
Sure.
a whole big picture of Wells County, so.
So I have a question for the rest of council. Do we want to spend more time with this? Are we comfortable making a decision tonight? Are we comfortable going halfway tonight or just taking more time? I'm just throwing it out there.
I personally would like to have a little bit more time on it.
You would like to
I
have more
don't know
time.
what
Scott,
anybody
you'd like to
else
have more
is
time?
thinking.
We don't know, like Seth mentioned, that's gonna be the bill.
That's the legislature's going to worry me right now.
Okay.
And we'll know by then, sounds like we're in a special session sometime. We would know by then what
Yeah.
we passed.
Okay.
By when?
They end in April,
Okay.
so by our next meeting, we would know.
Yeah, that was going to be my question is, if you don't know, is there light at the end of the tunnel that will,
Yeah, we'll figure out that now.
okay.
But we should know by then. I mean, unless there's again a special session that's pulled into play, which hopefully there isn't, they would know and have everything passed by the end of April.
Sure,
Just conclude their session.
makes sense.
Any other questions? Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Again for your statement.
Thank you.
And thanks to all of you for coming tonight. Bill, do you want to come up for Purdue Extension?
Bill, thank you. Thank you.
First off, I just want to give a shout out to Scott for a great presentation, especially representing his staff there. I think that's commendable. Anyway, so tonight, I'm just here with Molly Hogue from our office to give a brief presentation. We're not asking for any more money right now, so I just thought I kind of wanted to give you an update about some of the activities. And actually, this is a report from 2024 that we presented at our annual meeting and dinner that we had in February. And I know you guys have full agendas, and I don't know if any of you are allowed or able to attend that, but this kind of talks about the highlights from this past calendar year. And the first couple pages just list our staff. But, so with the Purdue Extension Service here in Wells County, just so to give you a little bit of background, we have 3 Purdue staff members that work in the office. Myself and I represent Agriculture and Natural Resources Program, as well as 20% Community Development. Molly Hogue she's the Extension Educator for Health and Human Sciences. And then Anya Albach, our 3rd educator, who has another commitment this evening, she does the 4-H and Youth Development Program. So our booklet is kind of broken up into those 4 program areas, and you can kind of see just a highlight of some of the activities. There's a lot more things that we do that just kind of highlights it, but a couple of things I'm just going to mention from each of the program areas. And of course, from Molly's program area, Health and Human Sciences, I like to talk about food. So, there's a really neat, interesting project that she's been working on this past year on the farm to school and working with the students in the school to actually grow some food in the school. But also she works with the Serve Safe training program so that we have healthy foods at our restaurants. And then also does a lot of programs with the food preservation. So anytime she's doing those programs, I like to get involved in those things so I can sample the stuff. Anyway, but there's some other good stuff in here. So some interesting trivial tidbits from the 4-H Youth Development Program. So without looking through the program, could anybody guess what our number one 4-H project is in Wells County? Do we have the most youth involved in? It's, what'd you say? Swine is second. Good, yeah, good guess. Archery. Archery is our number one project. Last year, we had 99 members signed up in archery in one of our shooting sports activities. Yeah, that was great. So, yeah, swine was second. Poultry was third with 73 members, rabbits fourth, and then dairy feeders, we had 54 members in those. So in some of our non-livestock projects, arts and crafts, we had 84 members signed up and 81 members in foods projects. So those are some of the interesting tidbits about our 4-H projects, but I was a little bit surprised with actually how many numbers, because we've had expansions in the numbers in both our 4-Hers and our mini 4-Hers. So the mini 4-Hers are kindergarten through second grade, and then third grade, they're eligible for full 4-H up and through their senior year in high school when they turn 18. So in 2024, we had 527 regular 4-Hers and let's see, 108 mini 4-Hers. And then also, this is what keeps Anya busy, 140 adult volunteers in our 4-H program. So 104. So that includes all the members of our 4-H association who operate the 4-H park, all the members of our 4-H council who basically oversee the rules for the 4-H projects. And then actually, one of the other things that is described here is the backpack program that is run out of our junior leader booth. That is run by 4-H volunteers also. We ended up last year in 2024 providing 174 backpacks or food bags every week to the students. Right now, I think we're up to 185 backpacks every week. Those backpacks get packed on Wednesday by volunteer groups, not 4-H volunteers, but outside organizations, service clubs, businesses, church groups. 4-H clubs come in on Wednesdays to pack those bags, and then we have a crew that delivers them to the schools on Thursdays. And so I don't know how many people are involved in that whole program, but it's a huge program, and I know the schools all really appreciate that. So in the agriculture and natural resources program, a large part of what I do is I work with farmers and homeowners and help them solve a lot of their problems. And unfortunately, a lot of those problems have to do with pest management or problems that they might run into. You know, just today I had people calling me up about identifying some insects, some people that had some trees, they had some problems, some guys with some drainage issues, and then another person that wants to know what permits they need to sell eggs at the farmer's market. So a lot of variety, but pest management is one of the big ones. And so here in Wells County, we have about 200 farmers that have to have a license to apply pesticides on their farms because they want to use some of the more potent products that are restricted use products, kind of like prescription drugs. So in order to use those products, they have to have a license to do that, and they have to pass a test and get continued credits for that to keep that up. And so our office provides those classes that give them credits. So we've got about 200 farmers with their private applicator licenses. This past year, I did several programs and actually was able to reach 157 of those farmers to give them credit this year. They have 5 years to get their credits in, so we do that about every year. And so one of the other interesting things that I'm involved in, which is a lot of fun, is teaching people how to use drones or UAVs. I've had my license and had my own drones in the office for about 5 years now. And we do trainings we started doing trainings just for farmers because this was kind of a new technology that a lot of farmers were using to scout fields, to make maps of fields, to survey their farmsteads, things like that. And now a lot more first responders are using them. So we actually had a training here in Wells County this past year. And along with some farmers, we had fire department officials and Bluffton police officers attended that training too, to get licenses to use their drones. So that's kind of one of the fun projects that I've been involved in recently. Anything else we want to talk about tonight?
Do you have
So-
any questions?
Yeah,
for
so I
what
don't
we
know if
do?
anybody has any questions or, how our office operates, anything like that.
Back
Okay.
to drones.
Mhm.
They're starting, I've seen people spraying their fields with
Right.
them, and especially in the springtime.
Mhm.
Do they have to be licensed or
Yes.
anything for that? Or is
Yeah,
it
they,
special
yes,
permitting
to
for-
use a drone for your business, which if you're just using a drone just to scout your fields and you're using it to make a business decision for your farm, technically legally, you have to have a license through FAA to be a remote pilot for that. To use it to spray chemicals, you have to go through 2 more jumps. You have to have an additional license through FAA, just like a crop duster would need. But you don't have to have the flight experience, obviously. So you have to have that license through FAA, and then there's an additional license through the state chemist. You have to get a Category 11 commercial license. So there's an additional test you have to take with the state chemist's office dealing with the chemicals. Yeah. So they got to jump through a couple more hoops. So that's becoming very popular more recently.
First time I seen that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
It was interesting. We did demonstrations for those for the past several years at a lot of our Purdue field days. But, and we could only spray water with them because no extension educators had those extra licenses when we first started doing these demonstrations. And now we have several. The educator that's in Blackford County, he has a spray drone and he has all the licenses that we can do demonstrations with real chemicals. And there's a Purdue farm at Farmland, about 25 miles south, and there's a Purdue farm up at Columbia City that we do field days where we do demonstrations and we do plots that are sprayed with those drones.
Anything else for us?
Well, we appreciate your support.
Yes, thank you.
We feel very blessed to be from Wells County. So, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All agree? Want to come up?
This box isn't all for you, so don't worry.
Here we go.
No cookies. Is that what I need to bring next time? Snack time. I did print out just a very quick summary for you guys, just as an overview, to be aware of just some of the trends that we're seeing. We have only been able to sit at the table for state data for 2 years now, since we've had the tax since 2023. We're going into our 3rd calendar year of Incubus collections. So just a quick overview, ending Q4 of 2024, we collected a total of 88,415 in our Incubus collections. That is trending at 7% decrease from 2023. So the change from 2023 to 2024 has decreased about 7%. So we're kind of keeping an eye on that. And from the state level, things haven't been normal since 2020. So between then and now, we're kind of trying to see what is normal, especially with all the changes economically right now. So that's where we're at as of 2024. We started our Britain marketing campaign in its first quarter last year in the fall. So we were able to gather some data through social media and our website information with them, reaching over 150,000 residents and surrounding areas to attract visitors. I do have that full report for you, and we will continue to receive those. We have Q1 now finished, and we'll be receiving that report at our next meeting in May. We produced county map brochures, which I provided each of you. Those were printed and distributed to us in January, so we are able to give those to anyone interested in our county map in a brochure form. And then currently, our collections do get reported at a later date. So we have January and a partial of February reported, standing at 8,000 so far. Our event marketing grant cycle, the first cycle is now open now through April 30th for spring and summer applicants. So event coordinators are able to submit their information to us, and we're able to partner through social media to increase their visibility in their event through the Meta. We are hoping to improve high traffic pages on our website, which is www.visitwellscounty.com, to boost engagement and get information to visitors who are looking for it. Our regional print marketing is continuing through Travel Indiana, and we work with ITA, the IDDC, Indiana Destination Development Corporation. Our monthly newsletters continue, and we are seeing an increase of event submissions for our events on our countywide calendar. So I'm really glad to see that. We're seeing Southern Wells events and Northern Wells events, and both city and county being submitted on there. I'm not going to go into too much detail. If you go to page 3, where I have economic contribution of tourism by the numbers, 2022 to 2023, we do have an increase of visitor spending by 4%. So an additional $200,000 was spent in 2023. Total economic impact increase of $100,000 from 22 to 23, 63 total traveler spending supported jobs, and a generated tax increase of $100,000 at our state and local levels. And I am able to present any full reporting that we've received from the state. If you would like to set up a meeting and talk about more details or look at numbers in a different way, I'd be happy to do that with you. I'm sure I or anyone from the board would be able to talk with you about any details or questions that you have concerning the collections or how we're using those funds.
I have one question.
Yeah.
So it says you reached over 150,000 residents. In what way were they?
That was through Meta. So that was our Britain campaign. They work on our social media to target certain audiences. So right now our campaigns are targeting the professionals, retirees, snowbirds, young adults without children, and starter families.
But that's through like online?
Yeah, so Meta is Facebook and Instagram together. That's the parent company. And so our goal with that is to get them to our website, and on our website we're hoping to improve that. And all our information should be seen very attention grabbing and hopefully presenting our best foot forward for the county. Yes, we did. Yeah, it was the 9th, yeah. Yes.
I mean, I know maybe we talked back prior, did that show a bigger result than we thought, or less result, or what?
As far as innkeepers collections or for visitors, because our visitor traffic was definitely there.
No, the innkeeper.
It didn't necessarily reflect in innkeepers for us, for our county. Yes, and it honestly did not reflect for us. And if you'd like to see that year to year, I do have that on me. But it wasn't a huge shift for us. I think, yeah, the percentage-wise wasn't as much as I was hoping. And a lot of them came for the day. They came early. Yeah, they came early. We were packed. You can ask downtown businesses, and I would love to grab some data just for the day to get a snapshot. And I was going to talk to somebody to see if we could capture how much traffic we occurred in that day, but I don't have that on me. So, yeah. Any other questions? Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right, so basically, last meeting I discussed the wanting to do a pay raise for the non-salary coroner deputies. At that time, I discussed the reason why I thought that the pay raise was necessary, and in asking for the pay raise, I did say that I would create a timesheet of sorts that's very detailed, that gives all of the details of the call. I mean, pretty much anything you would need to know about the call, the length of the call. That way there's more, I guess, accountability and record keeping for those calls. So it's not just a matter of someone telling me I was on a call for 3 hours and then paying them for 3 hours worth. So last time I did propose a pay raise, but after looking at some of the surrounding counties and the counties in Indiana, there's a huge variety of the ways that the counties in Indiana pay their deputies. So it's very hard to, I guess, compare county to county. But one of the things that I looked at going into it was that if I could keep my deputies at about $50 an hour, I would be happy with that. And in order to do that, we talked about, a coroner call can be anywhere from 1 hour to 5 hours. And then an autopsy is another 3 hours, with the average call being 3 hours. So if we could do 150 per call and then 150 per autopsy, that averages out roughly to about $50 per hour for the deputies. And then because before I wanted to do a certain amount and then like so much money per hour after that. And I think this is just an easier, clean cut way of having just a solid number. This is how much you make per call, whether you're there an hour or 5 hours. On some calls you may come out a little ahead, on some calls you may come out a little behind. But I think that's probably the fairest proposal as far as the pay raise for them. And then also with a $25 an hour training bonus or a training pay. As of right now, we don't get paid for any of our trainings we go to. And obviously those trainings would have to be backed up with a certificate or some type of documentation of some sort in order for them to get paid for that training. So that's what I got.
Do you know by chance, Cliff, I know you've got different counties on here, but like I don't see of our grants closest, but do you know like what Adams?
So I know that,
Jay,
yeah.
Do you know what those counties have to pay that are closest to us?
So I do know that for instance, I know for sure Jay County, they pay $300 per call. So we're still only at like half of what they pay.
And the call, does that include like an autopsy?
So for Jay County, that does include the autopsy, but they don't have to travel for their autopsy. Their autopsies are done in Jay County. So they don't have the roughly hour and a half, 2 hours of travel time that we have, yes. So that does include the autopsy if that particular death calls for an autopsy. If it doesn't call for an autopsy, they may be making $300 an hour. So, like I said, yes, and you win some on some and you lose some on some. But I do know that for sure. I think Adams County, if I remember right, I think Adams County does, if I remember right, I think they do a salary even for their deputy coroners, which I feel like would become confusing with budgeting and things, especially with depending on how many deputy coroners you have. But there was a lot of counties I know that for sure Lisa reached out to a lot of counties, and there was a lot of counties who never got back with her on it. So,
Cliff, what percentage of the calls do you personally take?
so I know we talked in the first meeting here. I think that right now I look at it, I'm probably taking about, if I were to guess, it's roughly about 45% of the calls. So I'm taking almost half the calls that are coming in. Out of my deputy coroners, I have 2 deputy coroners. One, which is John Petro, who once he became EMA director, he's only allowed to like give me 2.5 hours a week. So I can't really put him on the schedule, which does hurt our schedule a little bit. And so basically between myself, Hillary, and Sherry, we cover about equal amounts on the schedule. So if you look at the calls that we got so far for 2025, I've probably covered close to half of them. I would say 40% at the most, or at the least. But Sherry has also covered a bunch, and a lot of it just depends on, like, I hate to use this phrase, but the luck of the draw. Like if you're on call when the death comes in, that's who gets the call. And so Sherry has also taken a very large amount of calls. Sherry has a lot of availability, so you know she's used a lot within the office.
So would you take, are you on call 45% of the time?
I'm on call, it depends on what you consider on call. I'm on call 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Because anytime a dead body comes in, I'm still the one that gets called. and then I have to delegate it and then still take calls during that death. So I will still continue to get calls. So I might get called at 1 in the morning. I'm not gonna get that call and then go back to sleep. I'm most likely gonna be getting, so.
You get every call.
I get every call, and then I delegate it based on who's on call
Gotcha.
for that call. I try to put myself on call as much as I can, but obviously with my other job, I'm on call every other week. So I have to delegate that because I can't do both jobs at the same time, obviously. And right now, we're short a detective, so I'm the only detective. So I'm on call 100% of the time for the police department right now also. So.
Put too much on your plate though, pal.
Well, part of that wasn't planned, but, yeah. But, like I said, you know, I have a good coroner team, and, you know, we have people that are willing to, like, for me, if there's a call that comes out that needs a detective and a coroner, obviously the detective role is my main role. I have to make sure that's covered, and my deputy coroners are always willing to jump in and take that coroner role if they need to. I cannot do both. No.
How many deputies do you have?
Right now we have, besides myself and Hillary, there'd be 4. So 6 total. So I do try to put myself on the schedule as much or more than other people if I can, but there's certain times where it's impossible for me to do that with my full-time job.
If you had a deputy coroner that left, how hard is it to replace them? Like to me, and, you know,
Yeah.
my view is the work that they do, I don't know, I
Yeah.
ever said that somebody ever probably
Yeah.
want to do or should do. But is $150, is that, do you feel like that's adequate? Or do you feel like it?
I mean, honestly.
Budget time, do you feel like that you may come to even ask for more? I don't know.
I honestly am a little on the line with the 150, but I honestly would like to see more than that, but I'm trying not to be greedy about it. I think that they probably deserve a little bit more than that, given the job that we do.
Just really think about when we do our budgeting coming up.
Yeah.
Because there's certain jobs that we've seen, police officers,
Yes.
you know, sheriff deputies, that are out there that have their lives on the line. They're a little different.
Yeah.
It's still a job that,
Yeah.
is different than others. And so just put some time into that maybe.
Yeah.
And budget season comes around.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I definitely would. That's definitely been a thought that's in my mind as well. And,
Seems like what you're asking is in line with all the other counties, put you right in there.
I feel like it would put us in a,
Pretty competitive stance.
yeah, competitive, yeah. And to answer your question, I didn't really get a chance to answer that. To find a deputy coroner, it's not always easy. I always find that it seems like they come to you. It's someone who's like, oh, that seems really, you know, like something interesting, and they will come, you know, asking if I have an opening. I actually have, you know, at least a couple people right now that are interested in doing it. It's just a matter of getting to a point where I feel comfortable adding 2 more, because I don't know. Like with John, it makes it really hard for the budgeting. With him, me only being able to use him 2.5 hours a week.
So why would he continue to be in that role? Or why do you have him continue in that role?
Because he's a good worker.
I would understand that. You know, we hired him because.
No, yeah, because he's a good worker, and he's knowledgeable, and he's passionate, and he's one of those people that you'd want to hang on to. It just does make it tough to be able to make out a schedule, where I know that I could put him on 5 days a week, but if he got 1 call, then he's done for the rest of the week, so I'd have to find somebody to cover all those other slots. Or I could put him on 1 day a week, and, you know, never get a call. So it's just, it's tough to really count him as coverage, but I keep him because he's a good employee. And it's not costing me anything to keep him on, because he only gets paid per call. And that's another reason why I would not mind hiring other deputies, because it doesn't, we have more deputies, it doesn't cost the state, or it doesn't cost the county any more money. Just the benefits, which is really not a whole lot for a deputy coroner, because, I mean, it's not like they get insurance or anything like that. Yeah,
It's just a straight per hour once they're on call.
Yeah, so the way I look at it is, if it would be okay, I wouldn't mind having a couple extra just for that purpose, because you never know when somebody might leave, and they only have the training twice a year. So if I had 2 deputy coroners leave right now, I won't be able to get anybody into a training until September, and even then there's weeks and months of training beyond that before they're able to work on their own.
So you're asking for 150 a call, and that includes 150 for an autopsy. So you're paying.
Well, separate.
Separate.
150 for a call, 150 for an autopsy.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. That's what I meant to say. I did not put that correctly. All right.
So every call does not need an autopsy, so you.
Kind of what I was getting
Yes.
at. So you're gonna have some calls, it's $150, it's an hour call. You're gonna have other calls, it's 5 hours,
It's
it's
$150.
$150. And you're gonna have other instances where you're gonna get a call, and that call will entail an autopsy visit.
Which is the next day.
Which
So
is the
it's
next-
Technically 2 separate days.
So just to be clear, we are separating.
Yes.
Okay, so you've got the 150 for an hour an hour call, then the next day, you're gonna go to an autopsy. Could be typically, an hour or 2 hours.
It's an hour for the autopsy. It's about a 3-hour between the drive time there and back in the autopsy. It's about 3 hours.
I think you mentioned that at the last meeting, yeah, so about 3 hours, you get
Yeah.
your 150. Okay.
So like I said, my goal was to kind of get them at about a $50 an hour,
And,
average.
okay.
Any other questions? If not, do I have a motion to make the coroners pay $150 per call and $150 per autopsy call?
So there is the question of training. That was not included in the motion.
Oh, and then 25, thank you, Randy, and also $25 for training.
Okay.
And the training, like I said, would be documented training. It's not gonna be, I went to a training, because a lot of the people that work for the coroner's office have other professional, jobs that involve public safety. So they're not gonna be able to be like, well, I went to this fire training, can I get paid double for that? No, it's gonna be strictly coroner type training, and it would be something that would be documented well. And it's not that we get a lot of that, so it's not gonna break the bank by any means. It's just something a little extra, to compensate, because if I have to go to a coroner training during the day, I have to take off from my daytime job, so I'm not getting paid by either job to do that. So it's just a little compensation for some training hours that we do need to keep our, certification, active.
But per hour,
That's per hour, yes.
would that include travel time? A lot of this, PC based.
So we do we have a coroner conference once a year, and that's where a lot of people get their training hours from, is the coroner conference. And that's not they're not gonna charge for drive time or any of that. It'll be $25 strictly for the time that you're in the training, because for like coroner conference and things like that, we do get reimbursed for our travel time and things like that as well. So that would be strictly just training hours, training time.
When do these trainings typically occur?
So the coroner conference is in June of every year, and it's like a 2.5-day training. But if you go to that, you automatically, that's gonna give you all of your training hours you need for the year to keep your certification. But a lot of the people that also work for the coroner's office work, you know, in police work or EMS, and they can also get training hours through there that count toward the training hours that are needed to keep the coroner certification. But I'm not saying I'm gonna pay somebody if they're doing a fire training because they're a fireman, they're not gonna get.
Yeah, this is coroner only
This is
training.
coroner only, and it's gonna be something that would be documented well and, you know, a certificate or some type of certification to show like that they were at this training for this amount of time.
So when the auditor's office would theoretically receive this documentation, what would that look like, Lisa?
It would, like, when I go to auditors conferences, I get, certificates for the amount of training hours that I have completed during that conference. It would look like that, I'm
Okay.
assuming.
Yeah.
But what I need to know is this, the training, is that just for on-call deputies?
No, that would be just for the on-call deputy. It would not be for me or, it would not be for salary.
Okay.
No, it's not for salary, it's just for the on-call.
So does all of this fit in, if it's implemented this way, is this gonna fit into the budget that you have now? Or I mean,
So-
at this point, where does that?
So it's hard to say right now at this point because we're only like, what, a quarter of a way through the year?
Yeah.
And we've had 25 deaths already in the first quarter, which is like half of what we had the entire of 2024. So we're already burning through budget in like autopsies and things like that. Obviously also with, I think, the van itself, we've been using it more, we've been driving it more, which requires more maintenance, more gas. So there will probably have to be an adjustment in that budget as well, because I have a feeling we're gonna burn through that, because we have been using the van more.
So at those rates, you're looking at roughly $4,000 more.
Yeah. And like I said, it's hard to say, because right now, if we keep the way we're going, we're gonna have 100 deaths this year, which I don't see happening, but, you know, at some point, I'm sure it's going to slow down. We actually just went through and added all of the budget so far, and I think, if I remember right, we were at, for deputy coroner, we were at roughly around $3,000, but I can't remember exactly what the budget.
I mean, it's fine.
Yeah, so I think we're like half, we've already met half the budget for the deputy coroners. But again, like I said, we've had a very crazy first quarter. We normally wouldn't get that many deaths in the first quarter of the year like that.
So Cliff, you said that you take about 45% of the calls, and what's a percentage like for Hillary? Because both of you are salary already.
Yes. So Hillary, what I try to do when I do the schedule is I try to put myself and Hillary down for a majority of the schedule, and then I try to use who I can to fill the rest of it. So for one, Sherry, she's got great availability. So Sherry's like my number 3 in the sense as far as like she's right in there in the schedule with me and Hillary. And then really between myself, Hillary, and Sherry, we cover most of the schedule because between the other two, there's not a lot of time that they're available to work. So between the 3 of us, we cover 95% of the calls. Like I think John's maybe had 2 calls this whole year. Between me, myself, and Sherry, we've had, I think me and Sherry have probably had the most. And again, it's all just the luck of the draw. Because I could put Hillary down for an entire week and she may never get a single call that week, but I could put her for one day the next week and she might get 3 calls in that day. There's just no way of knowing how to evenly, equal that out amongst everyone
trying to phrase this a little more correctly, Brandon, maybe you can catch me there. It'd be $150 per call, $150 per autopsy, and $25 per hour for training. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Scott. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, Cliff.
Thank you, guys.
The
Yep.
next few items should hopefully be fairly quick. One is the interlocal agreement for economic development. Spend more time on this than what I would care to have, and so does Commissioner Stringer representing council, representing commissioners. What it essentially is going back and basically, you know how we had the old with Chad Klein where the county was giving money, and we kind of changed that whole dynamic now where we have economic development. I sent you guys all an email afterwards about the CF ones, but right now on the economic development council or board for a better word, but it's the president of the county council appointee, it's president of the commissioners they're appointing, the mayor, city of Ossian, and the common council president or Ossian they're appointing. So we have this whole construct done. The interlocal agreement basically allows us to pay the city the reimbursement that essentially we were getting back in the day to the Chamber of Commerce to pay for Chad. So what this agreement basically does is allows us to pay the city what we owed them for, I don't know, Jeff, if it's been 9 months or however long, almost a year now. Another 20 years since Chad left. So which tells you how much fun it is to work on an interlocal agreement, by the way, all the attorneys. So that's all that agreement, essentially, is similar to the 911 agreement that we did back in the day, the interlocal, allows the county to basically, in this case, pay the city for our portion of economic development. Also explain a portion, and then, of course, the city has theirs.
And that's the plan, the continuation of that, right?
The end goal is gonna be to create a 501c3. So we're working through that now. So the interlocal will bridge until we get a 501c3 created. I can tell you, I would like to say it would happen in the next month or two, but I'm not going my breath, so I'll probably die. And we have to call
But this will
back
cover
in to get me.
where we're at.
This will cover where we're at until we get that down.
You know, that's your main focus right now is working on the 501c3s, we can really get economic development.
And that will formalize the process when it's done.
This is pretty much, this agreement is right for October 20.
It is correct. Yep. It's retroactive to where the city's been paying the whole bill for it, so it is something we would basically reimburse the city for.
Thanks for the work you guys have done on this.
And if you guys have not interacted with Jessica, she is doing a great job. I mean, she is really, we meet once a month. She's tracking, she's learning what she doesn't know, she's calling up Alitos and other counties. And it's a breath of fresh air to see all that she is doing and just the excitement she loves for doing it. So if you ever get a chance to interact with her, she's doing a really good job. So.
Do you need a vote on this or anything?
Yes, we're not.
And the commissioners have already.
Everybody signed it but us. Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve this interlocal agreement for economic development services.
Thank you, Steve. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Vicki. All in favor?
Aye.
The other one that I had added on there, and I did talk to Sean last week, it's been a year that we've had the stipend for Sean over at the highway garage to pick up the engineering work that was done. I believe it was just over 27,000, Lisa, is that correct? At that point, you know, he was doing 20 different projects. If you remember, the way that we had structured it was when we hired a county engineer, once he is done doing any of the projects, the stipend would go away. Well, when we hired a county engineer, he came from the state, there was a conflict of interest on about 20 projects. Correct me, Lisa, if I'm wrong here. 25. Five. Well, he's gonna be wrapping those up. I think in May, 3 fall off.
Yes.
November 1 falls off.
Yes.
He'll only have 1 left. So I basically said that, and I can let this council come up with a number, but I threw out knocking all the way down to 3,000 to 5,000. There's not as much work that's being done now that was being done when this was originally
Yeah, I
put in
think,
place. And so I don't mind until these are all wrapped up that we continue to reduce it some. He is still doing some work when I talked to him on the phone with these, obviously, but it just seems like the stipend to me is a bit to be forever. And so I do think that it makes sense to do an adjustment there. Unless anybody has any other thoughts on it. But I was thinking the 3 to 5 range, but, I did tell Sean we would be talking about it. I told him to get with me if he had any other thoughts before we had our meeting. He didn't, so, I have communicated with him and in that range. So, Jeff, I don't know if you have anything to add. I know you're more in the weeds with what's going on over there than what we may be, but.
I think the math for me would be if it's, what's the number now, 25?
27 right now.
Just divide that by 5, and as they roll off, that percentage goes off for each one.
So he's down to 5.
I would take it to 5 now.
How many projects is he down to?
He's down to 5 projects right now.
It's all
Yes.
different now, so.
Yeah,
that's all I said.
but
Yeah,
three of those.
Well,
Three of those ended May though.
He had over 20.
Well, just why
No.
Nate Rumshaw was on before we got Nate, it was over 20.
Right, that's why we passed the stipend.
I think
But some were just in the roll call, I believe, right?
But,
It-
but
the
one,
stipend was put in when we knew there was a gap between what Nate Whitaker could pull off coming in because of the conflict of interest.
I thought that was put in place before you had somebody hired.
Right.
because he
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
doing all that, working with.
right,
Nate
so
Whitaker in Adams County.
once he came in, Sean's load dropped. And at this
Right.
point, it's down, my understanding, it's down to 5.
5, 3
So,
roll off
so,
in May.
and 3 roll off in May. So I think what the
There'd be
motion,
substantial
yeah,
completion of, so it'd be down to 2, right?
2, and I believe one's November and then one is sometime next year.
the motion I would make would be something like this. He's gonna get paid $1,000, so he's gonna get paid, continue to be paid $5,000. For every project, as it rolls off, 1,000, you reduce it by the 1,000, because he has 5 now, so yeah, you reduce it by 20% until it goes to 0.
Okay.
I wanna see a finish line.
Well, it's annualized, 25, right? Annualized,
Like 27.
27.
We'll say 25. So that's $5,000 a project, annualized per year. Right? So what you were saying is if he still has 5 on his plate now, we leave it at 27 until May, then 3 roll off, and then we take it to 10 annualized. Right? Is that what you're saying? And then in October, when the 4th one falls off, it's $5,000 at that point out annualized until he's to 0. Is that what you're saying?
I was saying basically taking down to 5 now, because I think these projects that are about to wrap up, there's not a whole lot more that's going on.
I don't think that's what Jeff was saying. That's not what I heard.
I know, Jeff, you talk to him more than we do, you know more what he's doing with these projects.
Look at it different sides, right? I don't wanna go hire another one. So, in my eyes, he reports to me, right? I would trade Sean a little bit. We say this on all sorts of stuff.
And I was clear with that on.
He's went through some accusations on things that happened in the drawings. He's doing, I think he's doing a good job. We need a stipend him for ever, I agree, no. But I'd be the one that pushes it. I wouldn't do that job, but he's getting paid even with the stipend. So just, I'm not telling you what to do, just take into consideration that let's make sure we're managing the money. I talked about that last night. We don't have a lot to go around, so let's make sure we're managing it. Let's not, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but let's not push we because they're hard to find. So just take that into consideration, whatever number you come up with. He stepped up and asked, he came after a while to ask for the stipend number that happened.
And he thought he was walking away from it when we got the new engineer, but obviously we found out the conflict of interest thing changed that whole, extended it for him, so.
And then just knowing the past, when I'm not beating on them, this is the best, in my eyes, this is the best superintendent we've had since I've been on the job. So I'm happy. But it's up to you guys to figure out. Say, make sure that we don't say people what we take into place.
So was he managing 25 of them a year ago this time? Is that what we're saying?
Yes.
I think it was 25.
I mean, I have the
Yes.
list,
Before we
I don't have
hired
it with
Nate.
me, there was a list
Right.
I had
Yeah.
that were
There were
highlighted.
25 projects in the county.
But some of them were not coming up for bid at the time, they were,
Those were all active.
Yeah.
BF&S took some.
I mean, personally, I'd rather, can we wait till May to make this decision? Because I'd like to look at that list I had prior. You got to think of, see where you got your house project.
I think the key here
Because
is.
some of those were kicked out because Nate Whitaker took them back over that weren't conflict of interest. So I don't know where that all shook out at. You're saying he's at 5 that he's actually managing right now?
There's 5 right now because of conflict of interest.
And 5 of them are under construction at this
Well, 3
point?
end in May. 3 are done in May. One's done in November, and then the other one's sometime next year.
And so that's what we're paying $27,000 a year to manage 25
25,
projects.
yeah.
That's roughly 1,000 a project, and now we're down to 5.
And that's why I'm suggesting,
Do 5 and then take 1,000 away.
do
for each
5,
one.
take 1,000 away for each one. And if there is a concern that our super is being, okay, we'll revisit it
Yeah.
then. But if there is a concern that the superintendent needs a higher salary or better compensation,
about that.
we will tackle that
During budget.
during budget.
That's what I did. I told him, I
Okay.
said, if you feel like it was, surrounding counties, they do,
Yeah.
rather than bring it to us and let us know.
I
It's
don't
a
want,
different-
I don't want to
it's
get
a
our
different
wires
stipend.
crossed on
Right.
that.
I'm starting to sign up with your original thought, taking the $5,000 now.
We just need to be cautious with, this all has to work out in a salary ordinance.
Well, what if we do this? We could easily just do it every time, unfortunately, we could say, we'll take the 5,000 out, and then after May, the June meeting, we can, if 3 roll off, we take it down to 2, and then we can figure out your November when it's done.
So what would a motion look like that would be consistent with a salary ordinance? Help me understand.
Currently it says 20 ERC stipend until ERC responsibilities are no longer needed. And it's at the 27,000. So you could do 5,000 until ERC responsibilities are no longer needed or
And then we can
whatever.
adjust it later if we want.
So we would be doing 5,000 until ERC responsibilities are no longer needed, but that would not,
And then we can
Re-
adjust that in June.
we would
In
just
June,
change it as it
now
rolls
since
off.
3 rolled off, we can take out 2,000.
Okay, yeah. Then I would make a motion, let's get this right, that we pay until we pay $5,000 until the ERC projects are done, the services are no longer needed. And
Do I have a second?
Period, not reducing.
She said, yes, so in June, then what we'll do is go back and reduce it by the projects that roll off.
We're doing
Yeah.
5, talking 5 right
So we're talking about potentially, several adjustments to the salary ordinance as these projects roll off,
We decide.
if we
When
decide.
you're talking 5, it's 5 for the year, right?
Through
Through all the pays. Yes, I'm with you, but I don't know that I'd ever adjust it, just leave it at that until it's done, and it's done, and cut it. That's where
I'm
my
not
head
opposed
would
to
be.
that, so just leave it.
That's what you're saying right now, but
And
I'm
then just
hearing
go
that
with
we are
what
adjusting.
Right, we wouldn't have to revisit it.
We wouldn't have to revisit
Yeah,
it.
we
Right.
can leave it at 5 until the project's done next year if you want.
That's, you're already reducing it significantly.
I
By
think
22 grand.
consistent with the workload.
I mean, that will, Steve. we can
Yes.
ignore
Yeah.
anyway. We don't have to in June do that. I just threw that out there. For now,
I'll
it's
second
just-
your motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the last one is, do we have to approve the budget dates actually, or is that just to let everybody know that we're doing that? We don't have to, we have to actually approve it.
You don't have to.
Okay. So everybody got the dates from Lisa, any conflicts?
They're way
Maybe.
later,
They are-
right?
We normally do this in
September
August, right?
was the September.
Well, part of it
You
was
must have some.
work.
Okay.
Yeah. I had work conflicts that were already on the calendar, and then also this room was booked all the time, and that was the other problem. I gave her about 4 or 5 other dates, but people already had this room booked. I'd like to kick him out of here if you do that. But I asked her, I said, here's some other dates, and she goes, those dates don't work, this room's booked. Or can we do it on the break? wonder if to have it
Strain.
strained.
We'll have to strain it.
So we meet with everybody on the 28th, correct, of August?
Hold on.
Full day, right, like normal. And then, how do we have a budget hearing if we haven't done everything?
Your budget hearing is on the proposed budgets.
Yeah.
So I will have all that information. It's just on the proposed budgets. Like if the sheriff put in $5 million for his budget, that would be in the Form 3, which is what's advertised.
What day does Labor Day fall? Have we counted?
I'll look, make sure we've ordered it.
Is it third before Labor Day? Yes, sir. I guess I can pull up the calendar.
September 1 is the Monday after we start the budgets. So the budget-
Meeting on the 2nd, and then we'll have a meeting on the 3rd for sure, probably. Then maybe after that, depends.
We usually do a pretty good job.
Yeah,
Stick around.
so you're probably done on the 3rd.
Yeah.
Like,
I work with
That's
Lisa to
fine.
make sure that if you push it back, it still will work okay with timing of the whole
Calendar.
process in it, yeah.
okay.
So, yeah, not convenient, but I do think it raises a good question down the road with everybody using this room. Or there just are not alternatives, right, because you have to stream it, and all the equipment's here to stream it, right? Okay.
The room might free up because anybody that has a meeting in this room in July has to strain. Since it's the commission and council. So we might choose a places to.
So it means those looking in this room, they don't have to stream.
They do have to strain. If they're in this room, they'll strain.
Oh, they have to, so that's the people who book this room have to stream. Anything else from anybody? Crowd? Not to have a motion to conclude the meeting.
Make that motion.